Russia is ready to sign a draft memorandum on a peace agreement and freeze the conflict along the lines of demarcation. But why has the Kremlin, which just yesterday was demanding complete capitulation, suddenly become so accommodating? The answer lies not only in government offices, but also in the minds of ordinary Russians, where dissatisfaction is steadily growing. As Bloomberg reports, this proposal aligns with the original plan put forward by Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, during his trip to Moscow even before the Putin-Trump summit in Alaska. According to the agency's sources, Witkoff told Putin that the United States would seek for Ukraine to relinquish Donbas, which includes Donetsk and the neighboring Luhansk regions, if Russia agreed to freeze the conflict along the current lines and abandon its claims to parts of the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, the publication writes. As Bloomberg sources recounted, the day before Putin's trip to Anchorage, he gathered high-ranking officials at the Kremlin to hear their opinions. How do you assess this plan? Putin asked the officials, according to people familiar with the course of the meeting. At first, they remained silent, but then the majority supported the proposal, arguing that the war should come to an end, Bloomberg sources said. And how do you assess this plan? Write your thoughts in the comments and we'll read them. At the same time, expectations of an agreement between the US and Russia at the summit were not met. Although Trump abandoned his previous demands for Putin to accept a ceasefire in order to create space for peace negotiations. Witkoff stated that at the summit, the two leaders agreed that the US would offer Ukraine security guarantees with wording similar to Article 5, referring to the NATO clause on collective defense. Russia did not confirm this. Witkoff also previously promised that he would not sign a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia until Ukrainians are confident that Moscow will no longer take up arms against them. In turn, British political scientist and expert on contemporary Russia, Mark Galeotti, stated in his column for The Times that after 4 years, the standard narratives about the so-called special military operation no longer resonate with an increasingly dissatisfied Russian public. According to him, this is precisely why Russian propagandists have begun making increasingly harsh statements aimed at prompting the Russian population to support the war against Ukraine. Recently, Russian propagandists have been actively spreading disinformation, claiming that the United Kingdom and France allegedly plan to provide Ukraine with nuclear weapons. These statements are absurd and highlight one of the key problems the Kremlin has faced since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Galeotti recalled that information about the alleged plans to transfer nuclear weapons to Kyiv appeared in an SVR-RF report on the 4th anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine. The report claims that Britain and France are allegedly actively working on providing Ukraine with nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them. The expert noted that Russian propagandists are saying that Britain and France supposedly plan to transfer to Ukraine the French TN-75 missile with a warhead of 150 kilotons, which is usually installed on a submarine. The SVR report states that British engineers are allegedly working to adapt it for use in the Ukrainian arsenal. These claims have no sources, are highly unlikely, and even by the standards of a war in which all sides use outrageous propaganda, are unprecedented. The French embassy in Moscow called them a complete lie, while the British embassy condemned them as yet another piece of disinformation. But this incident gives an idea of the mood of the Russian public towards Ukraine, writes Galeotti. The journalist emphasized that even experts invited to comment on Russian media are talking about this implausible information.